This is the Canon T6i. This is a camera that came out in 2015, and now in 2023, this is 8 years old. Is this still a good camera? This was our family camera for all of our birthday party photos, that kind of thing, but since the phones have gotten so good, there's no really use for a DSLR camera in the house anymore because the phone photos are just good enough. Now with a DSLR, yes, you can take better pictures than you can with an iPhone, but it's just not convenient to have something like this for the average person. So I saw this sitting there and I was wondering, how much is this worth now? 8 years later, let's take a look on eBay. To my surprise, this was worth $277.77. That is cheap. That is so much cheaper than what we got it for originally. That's body only, but still, that's an amazing price for what you can get. I mean, to get the current shot that you're seeing right now, it's $10,000 worth of camera equipment. So what can we do for $277? How does this T6i from 2015 hold up in 2023? Now, if it's not 2023 right now, if it's 2026, 2027, this video might still be of interest to you, so stick around. Anyways, yeah, so I took this camera and I wanted to see what kind of movie I can make with it, because this is a cheap camera from years ago now and could possibly be a good option for aspiring filmmakers, aspiring photographers, etc. I think I will do a separate video on this camera for photography because there is a lot to cover in that as well. So we're gonna specifically look at filmmaking, taking videos with this camera. To start, you have a little flip screen. This is everything when it comes to video. My new camera has a flip screen as well. It's the Sony a7R5. That one has a bit of a better screen because you can tilt, swivel, you can do anything with it. This one only stays on this axis here. But when it comes to making videos, this is amazing. You can position the camera however you want, whatever angle you want, and you can still see the screen because you can angle it towards you. You can hold it like this and look down instead of in front of you. It's so convenient to have this, especially for video. It's also incredibly useful for vlogging. That's not exactly what I used it for this time, but if you do want to be a vlogger, flip out screens are extremely useful for that as well. So, I mean, we're off to a pretty good start with this camera for $277. Like, flip screen? Great, well, I'll take it. So something I really like about this camera is it's already in that era where Canon put a touch screen on their cameras, and it's super user-friendly just to change the shutter speed, aperture, exposure, etc. all through the screen, all with touches, so you don't have to go for the ISO button, you don't have to hold AV to change the aperture, none of that stuff. You could do all of that straight from here. Autofocus, this does not have autofocus like cameras nowadays, but for the video, the little film that I made using this camera, I used full manual focus, and it depends on what you're working on, but a lot of films, that's what you will end up going with, so I didn't really weight it too heavily on that. But the autofocus, when you've got the STM lens, is pretty quick. It's not too shabby compared to the cameras nowadays. Sony a7R5. It has the AI image processor. You can't even compare. Nonetheless, this will get the job done for autofocus if you need it. It still has face detect. When it comes to making films, movies, that kind of thing, as I mentioned earlier, unless you're vlogging or doing everyday kind of video, it's nice to be in manual focus so that you focus exactly on the thing that you want and don't let the camera guess. Speaking of manual, this camera has full manual control when it comes to videos, movies. You can change the aperture, the shutter speed, the ISO, all straight from the camera, the white balance, all of that stuff. Also great for shooting your own little short films, your own little movies. So that's always a plus and something that many beginner level cameras don't tend to include. So I'm really happy that this allows you to have that control. So what kind of video specs does this have? Does it shoot 4K? No, unfortunately no 4K, but it's 1080p, 30 frames per second, no 60 frames per second, but that 1080p looks really good. I shot it in 24 frames per second, but same thing, same resolution, same quality. It looks amazing. You'll see in a sec what it looks like, but overall, I was super pleased with the quality that came out of this. It doesn't look as sharp as 4K, and that's to be expected because it's not 4K, but it has this look to it, which is, it doesn't look as digitized. It looks more analog, even though it's a digital camera. It looks softer. It's something that I kind of like and I kind of miss from back in the day when cell phones and all of these things, any video camera didn't record in such a over-sharpened look. It looks nice. Another thing for video that I should point out here as well is it has a mic jack here on the side, which is amazing. You could plug in external microphones like this little lavalier I have connected to mine right now. You can have better quality audio, although it's always possible to record your audio externally, so it's not too big of an issue, but it's so much more convenient to have it in the camera. You've of course got your built-in mic over here somewhere. I think it's this thing here at the front. It's good for a built-in mic, but I wouldn't rely on it for anything professional. If you're vlogging, it is definitely passable though. I have used this before in some of my vlogs and nobody has noticed. So now the last thing that I want to point out about this camera when it comes to video is I like how it has a dedicated video switch. So if you actually, one second, let me show you. So if you look up close here, you have a dedicated video section. So you've got off, you've got on, and then you've got video here. In that case, when you go to turn on the camera, you're not gonna have to spin the dial to some kind of video mode and then set it to manual or automatic or any of that kind of thing. You can just set it to automatic here, and now your video mode is an automatic. You can set it to manual, and now your video is in manual, and you can change all the things in there like exposure. That's nice. That's a nice little touch. Thanks, Canon. All right, so now let's talk about how my short film went. What did I use to film it? Of course, I used the T6i, but what lens did I use? How did it go? Did I run into any challenges, issues, that kind of thing? Yeah, let's get started. So first of all, I use this lens here. This is the Canon 18-200 millimeter f3.5 to 5.6. Now, I don't have very many Canon lenses because I'm pretty heavily invested into my Sony system right now rather than Canon, but this was our family lens that we've used for all of our family pictures and stuff. Now, this is a great lens if you don't want to have a huge collection of lenses, if you don't want to have everything going from wide, telephoto, all these primes, all that kind of stuff. This is good to have the whole range covered from wide to telephoto. That being said, it's not a very fast lens. f3.5 at the wide end is as bright as it's gonna get, and 5.6 on the long end. There is no f2.8 going on here, but you still can get a blurry background using this lens, especially if you go telephoto. So for this film, most of the shots that you're gonna see are filmed around the 135-200 millimeter range, just because I did want to get close-ups, and this has pretty good macro capability. I wanted to get close-ups with a blurry background, compress that background in a little bit, and yeah, but there are a few exceptions where I used the wider end of the lens, but not too often, and you'll see that. Now, because I was so much in the telephoto end of this lens, 5.6, it doesn't let in too much light. So I use something like an umbrella light, which I've got right here. You can't really see it, it's just at a camera, but it just diffuses the light onto you so it's not so harsh, not any of those like harsh shadows, it's just soft, diffused light. That helped me lower the ISO, but I still had to use between 800 and 1600 pretty often for some of the clips that I was shooting. Either way, you can't notice it too much in the film, so I think the camera did a pretty good job, so thumbs up for that. Now, one issue that I did run into was the camera's ability to change white balance. Now, this is user error. This is nothing wrong with the camera. There's a little white balance button right here. If I click it, I thought that it would bring up the little white balance menu so I could change the white balance of the camera. That didn't show up, so I was really confused. Turns out, now, by the way, this is because I don't shoot Canon often. There's a little Q button here, or you can hit Q over here as well. And there is the white balance right here, and you can cycle through the different white balances over there. I didn't really know that. I should have probably played around a little bit more with the camera as before I started shooting the film. So I pretty much stayed in automatic white balance for the entire film. I wish I could have had a little bit more control over that or played around with the camera, but it is what it is. It still turned out pretty well. You can't tell, it handled the auto white balance really well. So I guess that says something about the auto white balance of this camera. Now, one other issue that I did run into with this camera, it might be because I'm a little spoiled right now by the Sony battery life on their latest cameras, but the battery life when you have live view on for the video is not too great. It goes down pretty quick just through the recording of the video, and I didn't even have the screen brightness on high or anything like that. Everything was just set to the middle, and it still ran out of battery pretty quick before I even finished filming the movie. So there's that. Although you can externally power these cameras with the wall or with an external battery. You could get a battery grip where you have 2 batteries at once, or you could just get a whole bunch of batteries and swap them in. So it's not really too big of an issue if you're happy with the picture quality that you get out of this camera. As a side note, I had a Sony a7R II before this camera, and that battery life was absolutely terrible. So what I ended up doing is I ended up buying a whole bunch of extra batteries. I don't even know how many I had. It was like, I had like 8 or something like that, maybe more. I have no clue, I can't remember now, but that had me going through the entire day and more. I probably could have powered my camera for like a whole trip or something. It was crazy, and I recommend you do something like that too if you're considering picking up this camera, because the battery life is not so great, but it's worth it for the picture quality that you get out of it. So anyways, let's get on with this movie. Let's get it rolling. All right, let me know what you thought about that. I think it went pretty well. I mean, I really enjoyed using this camera, and I think the results that came out of it show my enjoyment. I mean, if there's a camera that you absolutely hate using, you usually aren't gonna get good results out of it. This camera was a pleasure to use, and I really enjoyed it. And for aspiring filmmakers, aspiring videographers, I would highly recommend this as a great budget option. Sure, you don't have 4K, you don't have the best autofocus, the battery life is but overall, you can still get an amazing picture quality out of this thing. The lens selection for this older Canon system is amazing for the price. Now you can get used lenses for super cheap, and the picture quality that you'll get out of it is next level. So overall, do I recommend this camera? 100%. do check it out. Now, I'm not affiliated by Canon or have any links in the description that are gonna make me money if you purchase this camera. I just think this is a really good camera for anyone who's just starting out, anyone who wants to get into film, video, that kind of thing. I had a lot of fun using it, and I hope you had a lot of fun watching this video and learned a thing or two out of it. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.